This is the Russian Dynamite, Masha Slamovich.
Becca here.
This is Not America's Sweetheart, Davian. And
It's Billy Starks. And
the super fly guy, Trayvon Jordan.
This is the fly side flyer, Jalen Brandon.
Hardcore Princess, Jules Malone.
Hi there, this is the Bubblegum Princess, Alexia Nicole.
This is the Brazilian Wonder Woman, Christy Jane. This is the baddest black belt, Chennai Kai.
This is Kid Bandit.
The smash hit Joel Bateman.
This is Robin Renegade.
Cody Hawk.
Brutal Bob Evans. And you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment, one of my favorite podcasts in the whole wide world.
Hey everyone, this is Steve Argintaru, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment.
Hello, and welcome to the show. It's Wrestling with Entertainment, the only audio experience on the web today, the trusted choice for interviewing all your favorite wrestlers every Tuesday and Wednesday on YouTube and Castbox, sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. I am, of course, your host, James J., and it's a great day for wrestling, because we are wrestling with Steve Argintaru.
What a wonderful introduction. Thank you, James J.
Yes, we like to do it big here on Wrestling With.
So great. Thanks for having me on. Great honor to be with you. I've worn many hats in the pro wrestling industry, just not wrestling, actual wrestling, but I've been a radio host. I am a long time photographer, like we're talking about, pretty much 40 years. I'm a ring announcer, and I am a play-by-play guy, and I do social media and kind of work behind the scenes with a couple of independent promotions based out of Toronto. So I have a lot of experience, a lot of stories to tell when it comes to things. You can check out my social media for a lot of my pictures, especially. I think if you're a wrestling fan, which I assume most people who are listening to this are, at Steve TSN. At Steve TSN is my social media on Instagram and Twitter. But especially Instagram, you'll see a lot of wrestling pictures. I guess a lot from the current version. I've shot TNA, I've shot WWE, I've obviously shot AEW. A lot of historical stuff since the recent unfortunate passing of Hulk Hogan. I posted a few of my shots of the Hulkster, both from in the ring and out of the ring. So I think you'll get a kick out of those if you check me out at Steve TSN. And I will also mention, I talked about ring announcing and play-by-play. So coming up on Saturday, August 16th, I will be ring announcing at Greektown Wrestling in Toronto on the Danforth. And it's a really probably one of the most stacked cards that we've ever done anyway. We have a new champion in Joey Janela who's going to be there. Megan Bain from AEW is making her debut with Greektown Wrestling. PCO will be there, and lots of other, Danhausen from AEW as well. Tons of other stars. It is a great time. Check out Greektown Wrestling on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. They will have all the details for tickets. The following day, Sunday, August 17th, Smash Wrestling in Toronto at the Rec Room by Rogers Center. Another great show. Carlito is the headliner, former WWE superstar member of the Judgment Day, and we're really looking forward to having him. I will be on the call, I believe, for that one with well, I shouldn't say because I'm not sure. I usually work with Blake Murphy from Sportsnet, baseball and basketball guru. Want to become one of my good friends. I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure if Blake's available because especially during the Blue Jay season, it's sometimes a little tough to nail down a schedule. But I think we'll be okay. So hopefully it's going to be Blake and I. But again, great great card. Smash Wrestling always puts on a terrific show. So again, Saturday, August 16th on the Danforth for Greektown Wrestling, and Sunday, August 17th at the Rec Room in Toronto by the Rogers Center for Smash Wrestling.
So basically, Blake has that Pat McAfee schedule. When baseball's off, he's on, and when baseball's on, he's off.
Well, yeah, but his schedule is also he does a lot of basketball stuff.
Okay.
You know, he hosts. He's got I think it's a 2-hour show with Matt Bonner during the Raptors season. So I don't envy him. He keeps very busy, and especially in that sort of overlap where you do get a few weeks of both baseball and basketball happening. His schedule gets really, really busy. So, but we're always grateful and happy when Blake can tear himself away and do some Smash Wrestling with us. So it's been great to get to know him over the last couple of years and work with him. And he's a great talent and a big wrestling fan.
Hell yeah! And shout out to Smash Wrestling, Sebastian Schwab, friend of the show.
Yes. I've known Seb for about 15, I think at least 15 years, probably around 15, 16 years. Met him when I first started going to the Indies. He worked, I guess the first indie show I went to in Brampton, Ontario was a promotion called BSE, Blood, Sweat, and Ears, that my good friend Arda O'Cal took me to for the first time. And I was at Seb's first, the inaugural Smash Wrestling show as a photographer. It was called Inception in October of 2012. And yeah, it's been a great journey for Sebastian and for Smash. And one of the things I love about indie wrestling is you get to see, I think, a lot of wrestlers coming up. Obviously, a lot of wrestlers, as we talked about, Carlito, who, some stars who had great careers, who are now, playing their trade on the indies. But, also you get to see stars on their way up. And then when they make their TV debuts, you can look at them and go, hey, I remember seeing this guy 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So, Johnny Gargano, Kevin Owens, then known as Kevin Steen, guys like that were, obviously Motor City Machine Guns. Lots of stars like that were a regular part of the indies. Obviously, Josh Alexander, who, and Ethan Page, both of whom had long careers on the Ontario indies. So, again, just it connects you. I always compare it to, minor league baseball or minor league hockey. If you had the chance to see Vlad Guerrero, with the Buffalo Bisons before he got called up, but of course everybody kind of knew, who he was, or Sidney Crosby with Rimouski in the Quebec League, before he made his debut, and even before that when he was playing. As a 13 or 14-year-old, because I used to work at TSN. We did our first story, I believe, on him when he was 13 as this, up and coming next one superstar. So, and I think it's just as cool when in pro sports like baseball and hockey, if you can do that. And I would say the same thing applies to pro wrestling.
Now, you mentioned it. You work for Greektown Pro Wrestling. You've been ring announcing for them for 8 years, since 2018.
Yeah.
How, for somebody that has been kind of outside looking in, obviously you were a photographer for you still are.
Yes.
What was it? How did that kind of come about, and what did it mean to you to kind of finally be a part of the show, so to speak?
It's a great little story. Basically, I had shot a couple of Greektown shows. I wasn't a regular. I don't think I was at the very first one, which is actually 10 years ago. 2015, I believe, was their first one. But I was at a couple of their early shows as a photographer, and I remember talking to the promoter, and out of the blue, he just asked me, "Hey, is there anything that you've always wanted to do in pro wrestling but never had the chance to?" And my initial reaction was like, is he talking about being creative, like coming up with storylines? And then all of a sudden I kind of like shook my head and I'm like, oh, ring announcing. I was, one of the very first things I think that attracted me in pro wrestling, beyond obviously the characters like Hulk Hogan, was Howard Finkel. He was, I've always been interested in journalism and announcing and broadcasting, and so growing up, when I first got into wrestling, I was so intrigued by Howard Finkel, just because of his voice and the unique way he would introduce wrestlers into matches. And I would walk around the house just, I don't want to say practicing, because I wasn't really practicing for anything, but it was just something that, that kids do. Some kids, take hockey shots on goal and pretend to be, Wayne Gretzky, scoring the overtime winner in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. And, for me, it was, I was Howard Finkel announcing at WrestleMania. So I always had that connection to ring announcing. And when that opportunity came up, I mentioned it, and the promoter said, "Okay, done. You're ring announcing the next show." And I'm like, "What? Are you serious? What about the current ring announcer?" "Don't worry, we'll find something for him." And I've been ring announcing for Greektown ever since. I am shockingly surprised to say that I've never missed a show, between my day job obligations and family commitments and all that stuff. You'd like to think that you would think that something would have come up, but somehow I've always managed to make it out to the shows, and I'm very happy and proud of that record. Almost came to an end earlier this year when I had tickets to a Billy Joel concert, which I was not willing to give up, but sadly, Billy Joel had to cancel because of medical issues on the day of said Greektown show. So that freed up my schedule for that Saturday night.
It's kind of like Billy Joel wanted you to go ring announcing.
I think so. So anyway, I personally, I wish Billy Joel the best, and I really hope he does come back, because my wife and my kids are all dying to see him. We've seen him quite a few times, but love to see him again. He puts on a great show, so hopefully he's back, and hopefully it's on a day that doesn't conflict with my my wrestling obligations.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah.
And you've had a couple of cool moments ring announcing as well. You got to ring announce the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about Greektown, especially in particular, they have brought a ton of legends in, whether they actually wrestle or just making appearances or somehow getting involved. So yeah, the last show was Ted DiBiase and Jake the Snake Roberts. I got to introduce Ted DiBiase to start the show, and I came up with this like literally at the last minute, just before I came out there. I don't know if you remember, Ted DiBiase, used to be introduced again by Howard Finkel. He would always say, making his winter home, making his summer home, and I think one of them was Hyannisport, Massachusetts, whatever it was. So as a little tribute, I said, making his spring residence right here in Greektown. So that was my little nod to Howard Finkel and the way the WWE used to introduce him as he came to the ring in the 80s. But yeah, there have been, probably my among my highlights. I mean, I was a big fan of DiBiase, but really, I think the two guys that who I'm probably the biggest fan of are Bret the Hitman Hart, which fortunately, I still can't believe we brought him into Greektown and had a massive, massive crowd at Ted Reeve Arena. And I got to introduce him and, do, the whole from Calgary to Alberta, Canada, and which was fantastic. And Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, another guy who, again, I think Howard Finkel put his own unique stamp on how he used to introduce Steamboat. And, one of the funny things, I think he came out, I think he was the outside enforcer for the main event match, and I still introduced him with his weight, his fighting weight, from Hawaii, weighing 237 pounds. And so that was really cool. And he came into the ring and he comes up to me and he shakes my hand and just very quietly, obviously nobody else could hear it, he says, "Thank you for the way you introduced me. You let the fans kind of have their moment for me, and I really appreciate that." And I thought that was just, that meant so much to me to have a legend like Ricky Steamboat say that to me. And I got to spend some time with him, after that show as well. So I think that's been just one of the great blessings of doing this job, connecting with, whether it's current stars, whether it's stars from the past, or whether it's up and comers. It's just been great to get to know a lot of these wrestlers on a personal level, and for the most part, they're all fantastic. I couldn't really tell you I have a bad word to say about any of the wrestlers that I've had the pleasure of meeting and dealing with over the years.
All right. All that being said, can you tell us about that time you did a 5-second pose with Jimmy Korderas?
Ha! Yes. So I'd like to take credit for that. That's something that Jimmy and our other friend Arda were kind of like the three amigos, three musketeers. We've known each other, since I met Arda at WrestleMania 24 in Orlando, and we just kind of connected. There was a junket of Canadian media that when WWE had an office in Canada, they flew a bunch of reporters and media down there. Arda was one of them, and I was one of them when I was working for TSN. So we connected there, and that's we got to know each other. And at the same time, him and Jimmy had also connected, and they wound up, doing a show together on the Score. It was originally called Right After Wrestling, and then later changed to Aftermath. And so Jimmy and Arda, I think originally did that first 5-second pose at an indie show that I was at, and I remember taking a picture, and then they invited me into the ring, so I did one too. And then Jimmy was happened to be at a Greektown show. I wasn't really expecting to do anything. I didn't really know what Jimmy's role was going to be, and then turned out that we had him do a draw for the 50-50, and I thought, well, we got to do something. We have to do something a little different to make it, entertaining for the fans, so it's not just a kind of a Korderas lovin'. So I said, hey, how about we do a 5-second pose? And I think I mentioned Art at the time as well. So that was fun, and I hope fans got a kick out of it. It's and obviously it's a tribute to a couple of Toronto / Orangeville boys, Edge and Christian.
Never heard of them.
Yes.
Kind of shifting towards Smash. How did you start doing commentary for them?
I think I don't think there was an actual formal sort of transition. Smash for many, many, many years had a regular guy, Scott Hunter, who was doing commentary, and honestly fantastic at it, did a great job. Scott, I think over the last few years, his personal life has sort of taken him a little outside of Toronto, so he wasn't always able to make all the shows that we had. I think it was easier for whatever reason for him to make the shows that Smash did in London as opposed to the shows in Toronto. So I think when those things happen, when there's an opening, And the promoter Sebastian knows that I have a media broadcasting background. He said, "Hey, can you do it?" And it's funny. I mean, I love it. I love doing it. I've always said play-by-play is really, really hard to do. And this is coming from me when I was, a producer and being in the broadcasting industry, TV sports specifically for 30 years. It's hard, and not everyone can do it. And even at the highest levels in WWE, without mentioning any names, there are a few people that were put in positions of doing play-by-play for the number one wrestling show in the world that had never done it. And in my opinion, I don't think that WWE did them any favors by doing that. It's partly it's I think you have to have a knack for it, and I think also you have to be totally immersed in wrestling. You have to be able to recognize moves and be able to translate that knowledge, that recognition to words immediately, and just be a good communicator. And not everyone can do that, and I don't think I'm great at it. I think I still have a lot of work to do on it. And part of the issue sometimes with the indies, with indie wrestling, is that you don't really have that many opportunities to do it unless you decide to make it a full-time job. So for me, Smash does a show, once every 2 months, 3 months. That's not, that doesn't, so what are we talking, 4 times a year? That's not great for, no, exactly. So I try to watch back, the shows that I do, and I take mental notes about things that I'd like to improve on for next time. But it's again, like I said, it's not easy, and without reps, it's tough to get better. But I cherish the opportunity to to do the play-by-play, and I hope I can get better at it, and maybe it'll open up some more doors along the way.
Has doing commentary kind of shined a new light on pro wrestling that you didn't necessarily see while you were maybe a photographer?
Not really, to be honest with you. I mean, I think I was always pretty involved and sort of around. People would ask me, like, when I talked about my experience in wrestling, I would never say I worked in wrestling. I would always say I worked around wrestling.
Right.
So, when I was, whatever it was, reporting or taking pictures, it was never specifically for, I was never working for a wrestling company. I was either working for myself or freelancing for magazines or working for, whatever employer I was working for. So I would always say I was working around wrestling. So I had a pretty good awareness of what was happening. And even before I started doing play-by-play, again, just some of the roles that I've taken working behind the scenes, driving with promoters and having conversations, I was pretty aware of how things worked. And again, just even being a fan and partly being a fan for 40 years, but also being sort of being really interested in broadcasting and working in the broadcasting industry. You can sort of tie those things together, and you know the things that are important if you know what to pay attention to. So by the time I finally did get that first opportunity to do play-by-play, it wasn't that strict. It wasn't something that was eye-opening to me, because I think I was already aware of things, and it was just a matter of putting that knowledge into practice in just a different role. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think it's a good transition into everybody asks, how did you get into wrestling? How did you get into photography?
Well, how did I get into photography? So my let's I guess we'll see how far back I want to take this. So I had a great uncle who used to own a photography store. This was, probably in the 70s, and so I think partly it literally is in my genes. It's a genetic thing. And my dad was not really he wasn't like a regular photographer, but I think he always had decent equipment, and I used to see him, especially when we went on family, those kinds of things were important. So when I started going to wrestling, I don't know if it was the very first show, but it was pretty close to the first show. I just brought a camera with me because it was just it just seemed to me something to help me document the experience. And the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it. And it never felt right not having a camera. And I will say, back in those days, we're talking about, the mid 1980s, you could walk into an arena with an SLR camera and not have security say, no, you can't take that in there. It was just a very different world.
Right.
So, and the more I did it, the more important it became for me, because I wasn't working for the media at that point yet, not for that, I guess, my first probably 5 years as a wrestling fan. But it became more important for me to have better seats. So, the first couple of times I went, I think I was sitting in the, people remember, in the Reds at Maple Leaf Gardens. So that was kind of the second level, and then the Gold, which was the next level down. And then eventually I started buying, and I met, as the more I went, I got to know some people down there, and they used to have regular seats down at ringside, kind of in one of the corners. And so I would buy tickets for the shows there. And other than, I made a reference to this in a social media post a little while ago, other than consistently battling the ring post, which you had sort of in your view in sitting where I was in the corner, it was a pretty good place to shoot from. And again, it was never, at the time, never with the intention of being a professional photographer or shooting for any publications or anything like that. I mean, again, there wasn't there wasn't social media back then. Obviously, nobody had their own websites. It was just there was no such thing as the internet back then. You were just shooting and taking pictures for your own personal enjoyment. But again, it just became important. I think I'm like this with almost anything I take on. If you're going to do something, you want to make sure you do it right. So and I think where I went from there was I didn't have, being a student at the time, a teenager, I didn't have the money to upgrade my equipment and get a better camera or a better lens. So the next best thing was putting myself in the best position to physical position to get some great pictures, and that was trying to get as close to the ring as possible. And so that's where I invested my money more than in the equipment itself, was just my location ringside.
What kind of camera was you using back then?
It was probably just literally a 35 millimeter SLR. I think that the first one I used probably didn't even have a zoom. It was just sort of one of those, prime lenses. Eventually I did get a zoom, not a very strong one, but they were all film cameras. And that was also one of the, as I think back to it, one of the great, memories, probably going all the way up to the late 90s, was I would, go to a show, I would take however many, there were rolls of 24 or 36. So you take maybe 3, 4, 5 rolls. For some of them, I took probably up to 9 or 10. I think of, probably Survivor Series. I think I took maybe only 5. But and then you get them developed the next day. You'd have to go to a photography place, like a Japan Camera or Blacks, or I used to go to Moto Photo, which is a lot of people probably never even would have heard of it. A lot of these places are no longer in business, but that was that's what you did. You finished a roll, you would take it to the photography place, let them develop it, and print them, and then you pick them up. Hopefully, they had like an hour or a next day service, and you get them back and you'd enjoy them. So that was sort of the routine back then.
What kind of camera do you use now?
Oh, I have a Canon R7. So it's and I have a couple of different lenses that I use. Usually it's a 70 to 200 millimeter 2.8 aperture, which is great for capturing action. It's not the longest zoom lens at 200 millimeters at all, but usually for where I shoot it doesn't have. When I shoot professional shows, I guess I should say, like, one of the big network shows, like a WWE PLE or an AEW pay-per-view, or even their weekly shows. It's even if it's a big stadium show, I'm usually good with a 200 millimeter lens, because where they put photographers is usually on a riser on the floor, and it's not too far from the ring, so I usually get great shots with a 200 millimeter lens. And same thing in an arena like at Scotiabank Arena. You can usually get a pretty good some pretty good shots. So I've never found I've had to use anything stronger than that. I think where I've tended to make adjustments is just in the sort of the quality of the lens. You can really tell the difference in terms of just lighting and capturing the action if you have the right kind of lens.
From what I know about photography, and keep in mind I don't know a lot about photography, it could be very temperamental, depending on the light, the motion, what kind of camera you have, and obviously certain cameras do certain things.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right in the sense that there are a bunch of variables, and you try to control what you can. So if you use the same camera and the lens time after time, that takes away one variable. You're familiar with the equipment, and if you've used it at various different shows. As far as the action goes, I mean, that there's going to be movement, fast movement. So again, one of the things that having a good lens with like a 2.8 aperture allows you to do is increase your shutter speed to allow you to capture more action, so it's not blurry. So again, if you're shooting action, you can prepare for that. The one thing that that was the first thing you mentioned, was lighting. The interesting thing that I've noticed in the last probably year and a half to 2 years shooting specifically WWE shows is you used to be able to count on the lighting being steady, being the same throughout the show, other than certain entrances where they might darken the arena for effect. But other than that, during the show they're the same. What I've noticed recently is that the lighting will change throughout a match, throughout a specific match, whether it's spotlights kind of consistently moving, or they sometimes change things, and it's very frustrating, especially when you're trying to you're trying to prepare as best you can for the lighting, for the white balance, and when things change, it really kind of throws your measurements off and what you prepared for. So again, I mean, those things are out of your control. You try to prepare the best you can and roll with the punches, as the saying goes, when things do change. And you know, I hate to put it this way, but really just you hope for the best. But again, if you're experienced and you have the right equipment, you can sort of minimize any pitfalls from those changes.
I gotcha. And I mean, so good that you had the honor of being in PWI magazine, you know, also known as the Aftermags. What does that honor mean to you?
I've had a 35-year association with PWI, and I have a great story about how it started. So I had started subscribing to PWI. I wouldn't even say subscribing. I started buying magazines, wrestling magazines, specifically PWI, probably about a year or two into my fandom. I was in high school. I walked over to you know, a variety store during lunch across the street from my school and started buying the magazines and loved them, loved reading them every month. I was familiar with all the writers. Again, just me being kind of like, even back then, I pay attention to those things. Who's the writer? Who's the broadcaster? Like I knew all those things. So fast forward to February of 1990, I was at a Sunday WWF show at Maple Leaf Gardens. They came on at intermission and announced that the following day, Monday, February 5th, they would have a media conference at Skydome, now known as Rogers Center, to basically promote the main event of WrestleMania 6, which was the first time, obviously it was a huge deal, first time WrestleMania had come to Toronto, it was Hulk Hogan against the Ultimate Warrior. And they announced, I think, the time, and I don't know why they announced it, because it's not like, you know, they were inviting, I don't think they were inviting fans out. But I heard that, and I was going to school in London, Ontario Western at the time. So I had planned on going back that night. As soon as I heard that that news conference was going to happen, I decided, you know what, I'm going to try to attend. Now, I had been working for the university radio station at the time. So I kind of had experience as a member of the media and sort of knew how to navigate my way around professional sports to a small degree, like certainly not what I'm familiar with now, but, and obviously it worked a little differently back then, but I mean, nowadays you have to pre-register. But basically what happened was I showed up and I think if I showed, maybe I showed my ID. I don't even remember if I did, but I basically said, I'm with, you know, Western Radio, and I'm here to cover the press conference, and they let me in. And I, you know, there I am with my camera in hand. To the front row, where I probably should have if I was shooting the press conference. I went in the second row, which wasn't as great, but got some really good pictures. Hogan and Warrior and Mean Gene and Jack Tunney, and I was feeling pretty good about myself. And again, keep in mind, no digital cameras back then, so I hadn't even developed the photos yet. But so I drove back to London that day, and as soon as I got back, I went into the radio station newsroom, and I literally cold called PWI and asked for Bill Apter, because I knew Bill was the guy who kind of, even though he wasn't listed as editor-in-chief, I just, for whatever reason, I just knew he was the guy. So I asked for Bill. He gets on the phone. He's the photo guy. I don't know if that it was as well known back then that he was the photo guy. I just knew Bill was kind of the guy that ran. Maybe I did know. I can't remember. Anyway, Bill comes on the phone, and I'm like, oh, hi, Bill. So I would, so I told him, I said, I was at the WrestleMania news conference at Skydome, got some shots, just wondering if you'd be interested. I don't know if you had anybody there. He goes, oh, that's great. We'd love to take a look at what you've got. And by the way, do you generally go to wrestling shows with a camera? And I said, yes, I do, in fact. He said, well, we'd love to take a look at your stuff. Great. So that's how the relationship started. I sent Bill my pictures, and basically after that, every time I went to a show, whether it was at Maple Leaf Gardens or I went to a bunch of WWF shows in the area, Kitchener, London, Oshawa, Guelph. Anytime I went to a show and was able to take pictures, I would send, I'd pop, like you can imagine, the other thing I'll get into just is how expensive this little hobby / freelance opportunity became. But, you're buying film, you're developing the pictures, then you're putting them in an envelope and paying whatever the postage was, and then hoping that Bill was going to take, a few pictures. Sometimes you'd only take one or two. Definitely a losing proposition as far as money went, but it was great when your pictures actually, especially again as whatever I was back then, 21-year-old, it was really cool to see your pictures in a magazine that you kind of grew up reading at the infancy of your fandom. So, and really, I've had a pretty much continuous relationship right up until now, through several different editors in chief that I've been dealing with, but it's been great. So even, the last thing I shot for PWI was the TNA shows up here in Toronto, in Brampton, and before that it was Elimination Chamber in Toronto. So it's been a great relationship, and nobody's getting rich off wrestling photography these days, but it's a nice to get some American money in your pocket for those trips, and just a good ego boost to see your pictures in a magazine.
Oh yeah. Now, what makes the perfect picture?
That's an interesting question. The cliche answer is it depends. It depends what you're trying to get. It depends what you're trying to show. I think I can tell you what doesn't make for a good picture. Bad lighting, blur. If you can avoid those sort of pitfalls, you're off to a good start. I say it depends because it depends what you're going for. If you're, it's funny. Like I've always been obsessed with action shots. Like it doesn't matter what, who you're shooting, what company you're shooting. Like you just want to get that perfect action shot, right? Whether it's high cross body or a moonsault or whatever. And I'm always obsessed whether I'm shooting a smash show. You just want to get that. You want to time that shot, that photograph perfectly, where you can just look at it, you know exactly what you've got, and you capture all the faces perfectly and great expressions. I guess I'm giving you some of what makes good shots, but very often the pictures that magazines wind up using, or that get maybe the best reactions on social media these days, are just regular posed pictures, like nothing really remarkable, but just great shots of talent, where you can, because they put so much emphasis into their appearance, especially for a TV company like WWE and AEW and TNA, that, whether it's their gear or, makeup and hair and lighting and all that stuff is so emphasized that they can look so good if, the picture's right and the pose is right. They work on their poses too. That's the other thing, right? And each pose is so unique to the individual that it really captures, I think, your attention as a consumer of photography. So I think all those, I would say, sort of portrait style, even though they're not really portraits because they're not specifically posing for you, but they do look like portrait style when I say that, as opposed to action shots. But I think I hinted at a couple of other things that I really, look at when I decide which pictures to post, which are, unless it's a rare circumstance, I need to see the faces, because an action shot where you can't see a face doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really draw you in as a viewer. So I think those are, some of the things I look at. Again, it sort of depends on what you're trying, what image you're trying to convey and what emotion you're trying to draw out of your audience. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That being said, what are some pictures you've taken that you thought were, as the meme goes, absolute cinema? Like a moment that meant a lot to you, that you got to capture?
I mean, I would say, when I look back at some of the bigger events that I've been to, I think being in Montreal for the 97 Survivor Series and getting some, specifically some great pictures after the screw job was over of Brett in the ring with, Owen and Jim Neidhart. They're just, I guess, placing yourself in that moment and looking at the emotion on their faces and knowing what happened. It's just, to me, they're those pictures that I took are so poignant, and I'm so grateful for being there at the time that it happened. I have this one picture, and again, I talked before about action shots. That's sometimes you want to take them, but you don't. They don't seem to turn out the way you hope or expect. I have this one picture where you can see Brett in the middle of writing WCW, right? I don't know if you remember that,
yeah.
Where and so I have that, and I think because that moment, that match is so famous or infamous, anyone, I think, that's a fan of Brett's and a fan of WWF back in the in the 90s or even knows about it, can instantly see what Brett's doing. Like, you don't have to, again, if it was just somebody random, spelling something out, you wouldn't know. But again, in the context of how big that match in that moment was, and you knew what was happening, you knew that was Brett's, that was Brett's last match in WWE. Like, after that, he was off the WCW, and after being screwed by the owner. It's that to me is so memorable. Trying to think if there's anything else specifically. I mean, I've had some, I'll just tell you about one specific moment that went pretty viral, which I wasn't expecting. Last year, I was in Philadelphia for WrestleMania 40. Night one was that tag match between, it was Roman and The Rock against Seth and Cody. And Rock and Roman had won that match, and I guess the stipulation was if they had won it, the singles match the next day for the title between Roman and Cody, it was going to be, I think, tribal
combat,
tribal rules or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Tribal combat, thank you. And I think it was literally one of the last shots I took that night was Cody and Seth walking up the ramp. And again, this breaks one of my cardinal rules. All you see is their backs. But again, in the moment, you kind of know what it is. So I posted that the next day, and I put some music to it, and it just went viral. And it was there was nothing to me, as a photo, there's nothing really remarkable about it. Like I said, it's just two guys kind of arm in arm walking up the ramp. You can't really see their expressions, so you don't really know what's going on. In the context of what happened the night before, or that night where they lost the match, they had the next day to look forward to. It was like this, year plus long rivalry for Cody. It must have resonated with people. And again, sometimes I'm lucky that I'll have, wrestlers with massive followings collaborate with me on Instagram. This was not one of those occasions. This was just something that I posted that I guess got into the algorithm, and people just picked up on it, and it just took off. And again, you can't see their faces, you can't see their expression. You just know they're walking up the ramp. They're very close to the entrance. You can tell it's WrestleMania, but that's, and you can tell from behind it's Cody and Seth. Other than that, you don't really, you can't really tell what's going on. So I was pleasantly surprised at that. Sometimes you just don't know what's going to take off, and you hope you get it right. But I'll just tell you, like, what I often try to do is if I know that there's a picture that the talent will like, I'll try to collaborate. I'll invite them to collaborate, and sometimes they'll be gracious enough to accept. And that's how, sometimes you get your name out there.
I gotcha. And I do think it's time for that segment once again, and that is Steve's Bizarre Adventure. You're in the pro wrestling world, and weird, crazy, and bizarre things are bound to happen. Can you tell us a road story that fits that description?
Wow. Let's see. I guess I'll say one of my favorite stories is I was at SummerSlam 2004 in Toronto, and I actually was not shooting that show. I was up in the press box, which is a terrible, like in Scotiabank Arena, terrible place to watch a wrestling show because it's up on the 6th level and you really can't see anything. And it's not usually used for wrestling. They put us up there for whatever reason. It was dark. There was, usually if you go up to a press box for hockey or basketball, it's, it's lit. You can it's a working space. You can actually do work up there. No such luck. It was dark. Like nobody was there. Anyway, so we were by ourselves, like basically me and a few colleagues. After the show was over, so Randy Orton had just won the title in the main event, if you'll remember. Mm-hmm. And so the show was over, and nobody's up there. Like usually you'd have, people that work in security taking you downstairs. There was nobody there. I wound up taking the media elevator downstairs, as I had done before. Again, having worked, bunch of Leafs games and Raptors games, I knew that arena like the back of my hand. So I knew where I was going when I took the elevator. I just didn't know at the time that the elevator would let me off in the backstage area of WWE. So I get off the elevator with a friend of mine. We're walking down and into sort of like a loading dock area, and found that, we're actually backstage, and I'm seeing all these signs that you normally would see, Vince's office this way, and green room this way, and talent this way, and blah blah blah. And I got there at the time that and I was able to, I guess, overhear part of the conversation. Randy Orton was on the phone with his dad talking to him about winning the title, and that was such a, to your question, a very strange, surreal moment, but such a real moment. And I think we can all sort of put ourselves in that position. If you played sports and you're, for whatever reason, your parents aren't there, and you do this amazing thing, and then you want to call them, and the first call is, maybe your parents going, "Hey, I hit the game-winning home run," or I scored 3 goals tonight. This was Randy Orton calling Cowboy Bob saying, "I won the title. It was the coolest thing." So me being able to witness that, that's one of the moments in wrestling that, and again, a very high profile moment that to me really stands out. And what makes the moment even cooler is just a few years ago. So this is a good, maybe 15 years after it happened. I came across a photo of Stephanie McMahon talking to Randy Orton. This was, I think, Steph had posted this on her Twitter feed, and I remember that moment as well. Steph talking to Randy Orton after he won the title, and kind of like they were really like, she got really close to him and just kind of congratulating him. And in the background of the picture, not really out of focus, pretty much in focus, is me. I'm like, oh my God, that's me. That was a very again, kind of cool, surreal, strange, weird, wonderful moment.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. Involuntarily in a photo with Stephanie McMahon, and she's the one that's posting it.
Yeah, like I just happened to come across it. It's not like obviously she would have known to tag me or anything like that. So it was a nice surprise, a very wonderful thing happening to come across that.
Well, another wonderful thing you did was you actually documented Trish Stratus getting a Hall of Fame award earlier this year. No?
Yes, Richmond Hill Sports Hall of Fame. So I've known Trish since, I want to say 2002. I've actually, and I've told her this, I think I've actually shot her more outside the ring and outside of wrestling venues than inside. It just happened to be the way things worked out. This was actually I think the third Hall of Fame of hers that I've shot. I was in Madison Square Garden for her WWE induction. I was in Niagara Falls the previous year when she got the key to the city, and then this one in Richmond Hill. So I texted her when it was announced, and I said, hey, I'd love to come down and shoot it, but also, I'll take some video and we can put something together. So after the night was over, and it was a great night, and she did, she was definitely the star of the show. Mike Camilleri was the other, I guess, well-known Richmond Hill native to be inducted that night. But I got some great video, sent it to Trish, and her team put together a nice little video, which is pinned to my Instagram profile. So if anyone wants to check it out, again, at SteveTSN, please do. But it's pretty cool. And I was very happy for Trish. She is, obviously like such a talented, wrestler and entertainer, but, an amazing businesswoman who just seems to do all the right things and has kept herself so relevant, even years after she retired the first time, I guess. And again, just had another match. So very happy for her and thankful for our friendship over the last 20 plus years.
Oh yeah. An interesting thing I noticed you did was you did a Q&A with Tony Khan.
Yeah. So that was actually that. Wow, I'm glad you brought that up. That was a very fun experience. So this was back in 2022. There was a tech conference, an annual tech conference called Collision, oddly enough. And this was before Collision, the TV show, was ever a thing. But Tony was one of the panels that was, or he was on a panel at this tech conference. And I can't remember if it was Arda or Justin Barrasso from SI. One of those two, I think it might have been Arda, was supposed to host the panel, and he couldn't make it for whatever reason, and I think passed on my name. Oh no, sorry. You know what? I'm lying. I think Arda couldn't come. I don't think he was scheduled to do anything, but he passed on my name, and I wound up doing an actual, like a WWE interview with their chief technological officer. But Justin was supposed to fly in from New York to do the panel with Tony and couldn't make it. There was, I can't remember, I think there was some atmospheric condition that was like delaying or causing flights to not leave the New York area. I can't remember exactly what it was. So Justin couldn't make it. And because I'd already been dealing with the Collision people, they asked me if I would host with Tony, and I jumped at the opportunity, obviously, and tried to keep it sort of, to the tech world, but we just wound up talking about a bunch of wrestling stuff. Hadn't really done a whole lot of moderating panels like that or hosting a panel like that, but it was great. I felt very prepared. I had met with Tony, I think, earlier that morning, although he's a tough guy to nail down. But it turned out really well. I was quite pleased with it, and got to know Tony a little bit before that and after. And Tony's got like a photographic memory, so every time he sees me, says hi, hey Steve, how you doing? So it's that was a very cool, memorable part of my long career.
It's from what I hear of Tony Khan is a very interesting individual.
He is all energy, excitement, enthusiasm. He's great. I've never worked for him, so I don't know what it's like for people at AEW. I can only tell you the times that I have met him. I probably met him like one-on-one maybe 5 times. And he's always been great with me, like very friendly, very like every time I've seen him, hey Steve, come to the after party afterwards. We'd love to see you. We'd love to have you. Just very, very friendly. And I think he's like that with a lot of people, like quite honestly, like I think he's very inclusive that way. And he's just a unique guy, a very hard worker, because again, running a nationally televised wrestling company isn't busy enough. He does stuff with the Jaguars. He does stuff with Fulham. He does, he's got his own analytics company. Like he's got so much going on. So, people can like AEW, can criticize AEW, and criticize some of the, creative decisions Tony makes, but the man is a very, very hard worker, loves what he does, respects, I believe, his talent, and I do think he treats them quite well. And I have nothing but good things to say about Tony through my personal interactions with him.
Well, speaking of personal interactions, can you tell us about that time you went to Disney World with Carlito?
Oh yeah, I'm liking your segues, by the way, Jimmy. These are really good. So there was the trips are still going on. So there's a charity run by Air Canada called Dreams Take Flight, and basically their mandate is they fly, X number, the numbers change, that's why I'm saying that. But at the time, it was probably about 200, 250 underprivileged or sick, but not, I don't think terminal, but sick kids down to Disney World for the day. And so WWE was involved. I don't remember exactly the first year of their involvement, but the president of WWE Canada at the time, Carl DeMarco, invited me on one of the first trips because they were asked, or they volunteered to provide, 1 or 2 wrestling, as they call them, superstars, for the trips as kind of celebrity guests and chaperones. So the very first year I went was with Trish Stratus and Val Venus. I went with Victoria. I went with Edge and Chris Benoit. I went with Christian Cage. I went with Mickey James went on 3 times in a row, Santino Marella, Batista, and Carlito. So it was, such a great, fun day. Again, having gone, I went 7 years in a row with a bunch of these celebrities, these wrestlers who would, again, and they were, for the most part, they were fantastic with the kids. Especially like the one guy that really stood out to me was Edge, Adam Copeland. So good with the kids, spent one-on-one time with them, really made all the kids that were down there feel important. Didn't stick with one group, just went around to all the different groups down there. It was, they were really great. So yeah, these basically, we'd show up to the Air Canada hangar at 5 a.m. There would be, all these things for kids and parents to do. It was basically like a mini sort of play gym area. They'd have an elephant there. Like, it was insane. And then the plane would leave at about 7:30 in the morning. So they'd get, all the kids and some celebrities. So, some of the other celebrities, Walter Gretzky was on, and there was just some radio. I think Doug Gilmour, I know Doug Gilmour was on at least one of the flights. So they'd get these celebrities on, and we'd fly down, probably get to Magic Kingdom at around 11 o'clock in the morning, spend the day there, and then at the end of the night, after the fireworks at about 9:15, make our way back to the bus to take us to the airport, fly back, get back to Toronto around 1 in the morning. So you can imagine that you're basically up and running for about 24 hours or 22 hours. But yeah, great. And you get to go on rides with the kids. And I mean, there's just, and you just feel good about it because the kids have nothing but smiles on their faces. You're just taking their minds off, whatever troubles they're going through. And I was down there basically to document it. I should have, mentioned when I mentioned Carl DeMarco. I was working with TSN at the time, and WWE had a working relationship with TSN. TSN was the rights holder, showed Monday Night Raw. So Carl, in his role as president of WWE Canada, made sure that their broadcast partner was involved in coverage of their superstars going down on these charity trips. So yeah, great experience, very, very memorable. And I would take pictures, I would do interviews, I would have a cameraman with me, and we would document. The flights were a lot of fun. Just going down there, they would do toilet paper races and just a ton of fun. So, and all the superstars, they got it. They knew what they were there for. And they were all, really, like I said before, were just really good with the kids.
All right. And I think it's time for the colossal question now. Let's say they're making a movie about you. Every movie has a soundtrack. What would be the first 3 songs on your movie soundtrack?
Wow. All right. So, for no reason in particular, I've always, I shouldn't say for no reason. One of the songs I like coming out to at Greektown sometimes is Daddy Cool by Boney M. Just got a really kind of cool vibe, fun song. Big Leonard Skinner fan, so really like Freebird. And that kind of I think in a large way maybe describes my sort of career in wrestling, in that it was never a full-time job, the wrestling thing, but I always managed to free myself up from whatever was going on, whether it was for my full-time job, whether it was sometimes family obligations, just to be able to Billy Joel, yes, to immerse myself in this wonderful world of pro wrestling. And I guess for the third, I guess I should mention Billy Joel, because just a huge. I'm a huge fan of his. Which song would I go for? I might, I think one of my favorite songs is Piano Man, as it is, I'm sure, a lot of other people's, but I'd have to go with My Life. Just a bit more of a faster paced tune, and again, probably speaks to me as far as lyrics go.
All right. Well,
how's that?
A solid 3 picks, to say the least.
Thank you.
Now that we have the soundtrack down, everybody knows you get the soundtrack first, then you write the script, and then you go to casting. Who plays you? And you can't say yourself because you are legally obligated to make a Stan Lee as cameo.
Wow, okay. I'm not saying this would be my first choice, but what I am saying is the actor that I consistently get compared to is Eugene Levy.
Okay.
So, again, I'm talking about Eugene Levy from probably 40 years ago, not Eugene Levy now. But look, I could do a lot worse. So I'm happy with that comparison. Would I choose that now? Probably not. But if it works, it works.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Now, every movie has a supporting cast. Who would be 3 people with significance to you in your story that would be in your movie, and who would play them?
Great question. Okay, so I mentioned Carl DeMarco before, former president of WWF Canada. To me, he is, one of the main reasons I was able to do a lot of the cool things that I've done in my career. Not only these the charity trips to the one-day trips to Magic Kingdom that we talked about at Disney World, but also things like shooting ringside. Like I was actually shooting at the ring at Monday Night Raw at Sky Dome. Like it blows me away when I think about that now, that I was allowed for about 3.5 years in the late 90s at the height of the Attitude Era, and before that the Bret Hart stuff, like to be ringside at a WWE show, like just insane to me. And I plus some other opportunities that came along, and again, I give Carl a lot of credit for keeping me in the loop. Again, not because he liked me personally. I think it just, again, had to do with him knowing that, I was one of the main wrestling guys at TSN, and he's trying to take care of his Canadian broadcast partner. But, he is, I think, as important to what I've done in pro wrestling as anyone. I'd be remiss, I guess, if I didn't mention Channing Decker, who is the promoter at Greektown Wrestling. As much as I loved ring announcing, as we talked about, it was never something I pursued, and I don't know why. I can't, it was never, as much as I loved it, as much as, we talked about, I walked around the house, imitating Howard Finkel, announcing all these legends. It was never something that I sought out. And, for Channing Decker to offer me that opportunity out of the blue, and for me being able to do it and fulfill some lifelong dreams, as we discussed, introducing guys like Bret Hart and Ricky Steamboat and Jake Roberts, and, even now, like, Tommy Dreamer and, the late Savu, just, some wonderful memories. That's 2. Third, I would have to say probably I'm going to go with Bret Hart. I think of all the wrestlers that I have sort of crossed paths with in the last, 40 years, Bret might be the one I can certainly say on my camera roll, it probably, the most pictures, I have the most pictures of Brett on my iPhone camera roll. He's just been, an integral part of things that I've done in wrestling, whether it's, shows at Maple Leaf Gardens, documenting him when he came back to the airport after he won his 5th WWF championship at SummerSlam, in August of '97. I mentioned the Survivor Series. I used to, I actually talked to Brett 2 days before the Survivor Series when he did an appearance on Off the Record, where he talked to me about his reservations and about his sort of anxiety about that Survivor Series match and about how it would go. And talking to Brett afterwards, after the screw job, and seeing him as a guest on Off the Record immediately. I think Michael Landsberg did the first interview with Brett on Off the Record after his stroke. And just seeing how far he's come, after that and being able to rehabilitate. Brett's been a very, continuous presence in my career. And like I said, right up to, being able to introduce him at a Greektown show. So there's your 3. As far as who plays them, I'll let other people figure that out.
Leave it to casting.
Yes. Yeah, leave it to the casting director. Exactly.
Gotcha. All right. This is sounding like a great movie. A blockbuster, to say the least. And
I hope so.
And you could pre-order the tickets now.
Spoken like a true wrestling promoter.
Yes. Onto a controversial subject. Pineapple on pizza. What's your stance?
Sorry, toppings on a pizza, you asked?
Pineapple on pizza.
Oh, pineapple. God, no. No. It's funny, my kids are very much the opposite. They do enjoy it. I will not touch it. I am very anti-pineapple on pizza.
Okay, so we are very anti-pineapple on pizza.
Yes.
Now, you are a Canadian from Canada, so I do have 2 Canadian exclusive questions for you.
Go for it.
The first one being, is Canada's greatest national treasure Ryan Reynolds?
I am going to go with Bret Hart. Not to sound like a broken record, I think Bret Hart is Canada's greatest national treasure.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that would make sense.
Yeah.
And the second question, poutine. Where is the best place to get it?
Oh, Montreal, first of all, in terms of the city. You could probably, I don't have a specific place that I get it when I go to Montreal, but yeah, if you're not getting it in Montreal, you're missing out.
Okay, so not a specific place.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't have a specific place that I go to that I would necessarily, feel comfortable, giving my endorsement to. So I will just say there are some good places in Montreal. I try to go to different ones when I'm in Montreal.
Okay. Now, what's your spirit Pokemon?
Never was a Pokemon fan, so I think I'm a little too old for that. So I'm gonna, if you have another question, I'll go for that. I'm gonna have to take a pass on the Pokemon question.
Fair enough. Now, we love the late great Tracy Smothers on the show. Do you know the acronym for Doug? THUG.
I feel I knew this at one point, again, being sort of a veteran of those wrestling magazines, but I think you stumped me. I don't recall.
T is for terrible, H is for hell, U is for ugly, and G is for jail, because a Doug can't spell.
I love it.
Yes.
Love it.
we love the late great Tracy Smothers trying to keep the
Absolutely.
memory alive on the show.
Well done. Well done.
Now this question is the weirdest question you'll be asked on a wrestling interview, hopefully,
Okay.
and it is very relevant for who's a part of it. Would you ever commentate a match with a Rock? Not Dwayne Johnson, not the Country, an actual physical Rock.
Absolutely, I would. I think one of the great challenges in life is being able to get out of your comfort zone, and deal with unpredictable situations. So, I think the challenge obviously would be, just like a wrestler would have to, I assume you're talking about a Rock versus another wrestler.
Yes.
A wrestler would have to figure out a way to make that match entertaining. I, as a commentator, would have to figure out how to describe said match in an entertaining way. So I'd be quite excited for it, to be honest.
Well, just for context, there's somebody, I believe you know them, called Psycho Mike, that indeed wrestled a Rock for over 15 minutes in a Tungsten Man match. That's an Iron Man match that lasts for 2 weeks.
Wow. Yeah, if anybody could do it, Psycho Mike could.
And he did. I mean, he didn't win, but he did it.
I saw Psycho Mike lose to a dog.
Yes.
A couple of years ago in London. That I was there for it, and that video went viral as well.
Mike's had some interesting, opponents. Unfortunately, none of them are, living human beings yet. So hopefully he'll get there.
No, and if anybody out there is a Psycho Mike fan, he will have a big match coming up at the Smash Wrestling show that I mentioned earlier in this podcast on August 17th. So, yeah, check it out.
He's still the heavyweight champion, right?
He is. He's actually one of the. He's got the second longest reign of any Smash Wrestling champion. He is coming up on 2 years in August, in mid-August, I believe. August 20th, I think, was the date in 2023 when he won the championship from Kevin Bennett. But yeah, been almost 2 years. Kevin Bennett held the championship for over 1,500 days, but many of those days ran over the pandemic, where nobody was doing anything in Canada and there weren't any shows. So maybe a small-ish asterisk, but I won't hold it against the remix because not his fault.
Right.
Yep.
On a more serious note, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I would love, well, I don't know if this is where I see myself. I hope to be able to be doing more things in wrestling. I think my schedule is a little clearer now, as far as I'm just not as busy as I was, 5 years ago. And I would love to do more things in wrestling. I think the challenge sometimes with indie shows is, you don't get very many opportunities over the course of a year, as we discussed, about my play-by-play. So there was a way to do some work with, whether it's AEW or TNA or WWE. I would love that opportunity, and I would definitely try to make that happen.
All right. And since we are nearing the conclusion of this interview, we are wrestling with the 8 questions of doom.
I'm calling it
Ooh.
the end.
This is our speed round, our bonus round, the round where we see who you really are. Are you ready?
I am ready. Let's do it.
Greatest wrestler of all time.
Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Huh, I was not expecting that. Worst wrestler.
I'm gonna pass on that one. Although I could tell you, for actually I will say for various reasons, I'm gonna go with Duke the Dumpster Drosy.
I will 100% take that answer.
Excellent.
Your main event, you're commentating the main event for WrestleMania, for the World Championship. Who are the two combatants?
Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
If you could come out to anyone's entrance music, past or present, who would it be?
Triple H.
Which one?
The Game.
Gotcha.
Yep. When honestly, like it was always, I loved watching it, and it was always one of my favorite entrances to shoot when he sprays the water.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I've captured so many cool shots because of the way WWE used to light his entrances when he would get up on the outside of the ring. So I've always had an affinity for his entrances. And I just and again, the music is so cool.
Oh yeah, especially when he does the spit. It's just it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's timed perfectly, and just can't go wrong.
Now you're taking me back to the good old days. Finish the sentence. Kayfabe is
dead. I think that's the obvious answer. I mean, and I think it's true, especially with WWE Unreal. I think it can, I can't remember who it was. Somebody just brought up a point the other day on social media after Unreal came out, that it can still live, kind of like Christmas. But I think the masks are off, and more than ever. There was always, like, even me, like, someone who was, like I said, didn't really start working in wrestling until more recently, but I was always around wrestling. I knew wrestlers outside of the ring, like as far back as the 80s, late 80s. But even, for me, I would still have kind of watched something on TV, and like there's always that sort of little thing in the back of your head. I wonder if this is real. I wonder if that actually happened. That part's dead. That will never happen again. I don't think.
Hey, you never know.
Hey, look, if it does, I think that's great. But I'm just one of those people that think that if, as the saying goes, the genie's out of the bottle. And I don't think the genie is going back in.
Gotcha. Squash, vegetable or fruit?
Vegetable.
It is indeed a fruit.
All right. I think I knew that, but I'm talking about how I perceive it.
Okay, so so you know that it's a fruit, but you view it as a vegetable.
Yes, exactly.
Well, you're part of Squash Squad now, and that means a hell of a lot more.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
New Japan wrestler Tai Chi. His ring gear gets smaller every year, revealing more of himself to the world. My question, what is the appropriate trunks to butt cheek ratio for ring gear?
Ooh. I think, look, I've when I was a kid, I'm not even talking about wrestling. When I was a kid, Speedos were big. Everybody wore Speedos. And as I got older, into my teens and 20s, it was Bermuda shorts, board shorts, those kinds of things. I think I'm at a point now where I am comfortable with sort of the kind of briefs look, if you will, of wrestling gear. I think anything shorter than that, tighter than that, I start feeling a little uncomfortable, both for men and women. Like, just, I'm here for the wrestling. I'm here for the action. Like, let's keep it professional, kids.
Let's keep it PG.
Yes. I mean, look, not not necessarily PG, but I don't want to be distracted. I don't want my attention to be diverted because your gear is so, outlandish, over the top, so revealing that it takes away from, the presentation should not take away from what I'm seeing in the ring, from the story you were trying to tell me in the ring.
I got you. All right, and the last question, the main event, the thing everybody wants to know. Have you ever had a conversation with a stranger in a supermarket about Darby Allin?
I can honestly say I have not ever had a conversation with a stranger in a grocery store about Darby Allin. I can honestly say I've not had many conversations about Darby Allin outside my probably 2 closest wrestling friends.
And that's the correct answer.
Excellent.
And that will conclude this interview. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this with me.
My pleasure, James. That was a lot of fun. You asked some great questions, and I really appreciated the chance to tell some stories. I hope you enjoyed them too.
Oh, absolutely. That's why we're here, to tell people stories. And where can we see the continuation of your story on social media?
I am at SteveTSN on Twitter, or X as it's known, Twitter and Instagram. So please check out my shots there, especially Instagram. Continuously posting shots from the current era and shots from years gone by. My archives go back 35 to 40 years, so I try to post some interesting shots whenever the mood strikes me, a few times a week. And I will also mention some of the things that we talked about, ring announcing. I've got a show coming up with Greektown Wrestling on Saturday, August 16th. Some great stars there, including Megan Bain and Danhausen from AEW, Joey Janela, who is the new Greektown Wrestling champion, PCO is going to be there also. It's going to be a really fun show, so I encourage everyone to check that out on the Danforth at our home on the Greektown, as I like to call it when I ring announce. Check out Greektown Wrestling on the socials for all the details and ticket information. And then commentary, I will be on the call for Smash Wrestling on Sunday, August 17th. And that is down at the Rec Room in Toronto, across from the Rogers Center. And that will be a fun show too. Carlito is the big headliner. So if you're a fan of either old school Carlito with the Apple or Judgment Day Carlito, you should definitely come check it out. He'll be doing, I believe, a meet and greet, and he is in a match. So that'll be fun to see. So looking forward to that, and hope everyone listening can check out one or both of the shows.
And Psycho Mike is probably going to wrestle Carlito's Apple.
That would be fun if he did. Psycho Mike, actually, I thank you for reminding me. He actually does have a big match coming up against Mark Wheeler. So the show is Super Showdown, which is Smash Wrestling's one of the 2 biggest shows of the year. Mark Wheeler won the Northern Tournament back in, I believe it was May, and so he has earned that title opportunity, and he will try to end Psycho Mike's nearly 2-year-long reign as the Smash Wrestling champion.
All right. I'm more of a Jay Wheeler guy, but going pulling for Mike.
All right. Mike's always fun. He's very entertaining. If anyone hasn't seen him, you can definitely find some videos on the Smash Wrestling YouTube channel and all over.
And you don't have to type it into your Google machine. All of the links to all his social media will be in the description of the video below, but on YouTube and CastBox. Simply click the link. A new tab will appear on whatever device you are on. You have no excuse. Give him a damn follow.
Thank you, James. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Absolutely. And of course, thank you for listening. If you like what we're doing, please like, subscribe, comment, both on YouTube and Castbox. This was sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. Join us next Tuesday and Wednesday for new incredible interviews, and follow the show at Wrestling with E, both on Xthread and Instagram for information on who we're interviewing, when we're interviewing them, links to those interviews, and so much more. Follow me personally at JamesJ993. Alright, when I say wrestling wit, you say entertainment, okay?
Sounds good.
Alright, for our special guests, Steve Argintaru, Kaliko Yacht, Scooter Dust, I'm James J, and this has been Wrestling with
Entertainment.
Hey folks, this is the Colossal Mike Law, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment. Enjoy the show, support these guys. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you at ringside.